All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. And as you can see in the last 3 videos that I've done, and they're all out there on the system, I took the payroll console program and I made it work. So if I look at the latest version, I made it work with the validation both C# library that I created. Now, with that said, the program works and it works just fine. But if you noticed, we're up to, I don't know what it was, close to 900 lines of code. 904 lines. And I mean, I did go a little nuts here with the comments because I replicated a bunch of the comments. So maybe I could even strike 100 lines from there. But there's still a lot of code. And there's a lot of code that's in here that is very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's repetitive. All right, so this is what I'm going to try to do now. So the last one that we did was the 3rd iteration pay console right here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and they're all closed. And I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to find 3rd iteration pay console, which is right here. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. And I'm going to paste it. There we go. So there's the copy. All right, we'll change this to 4th iteration pay. Oops, don't know what happened there. Okay. All right, so we've got 4th iteration. Well, we had a 4th iteration pay console. Now I don't know where it went. There it is. It's still in there. So let's change the name here. And we'll call this 4th iteration pay console. All right. And as we've done before, we will first open this. Then we will change the name on here from 3rd iteration pay console to Fourth iteration pay console. So that's done. Now let's open that. And where we've got 3rd iteration, let's change that to 4th in both these instances. All right, so that's done. Let's save this and close it. No sense in having these files open any longer than they have to be. All right, and let's come in here and let's get into our program and it's not there right now. You'll notice there is no 4th iteration pay console. So we're going to bring it in. And again, how are we going to do that? We're going to right mouse click on the name of our project, choose Add Existing Project, come over here where they are all listed, find 4th iteration pay console, and double click the file here. So there it is. Now, one more thing we want to do here is we want to right mouse click, choose Add just to make sure it's there, go to Reference, and we do have the validation. Okay, so right now I'm not going to run this, but if I did, in essence, it would be the same program as the last one that we had. But this one is going to be the 4th iteration of our payroll program. Let me stop this for a sec. All right, so what we're going to try to do in this one here, so these functions are in here, and I'm going to put the 3rd iteration of the C# payroll app resulted in a lot of duplicated code. In this iteration, we will try to minimize the amount of duplicated code. Okay, so that's the goal here. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to try to do here is I'm not even going to worry about any of this stuff that's in here right now, okay? I'm just going to go down to the bottom of the program, and I'll worry about cutting stuff out at a later time. But for now, I just want to go down, like I said, to the very bottom of the program. All right, so we've got all of our different employees. There's our, etc. So I'm going to go way down to line 900 and something. All right, and let's see. What I want is the last two, these that are in here, I don't care about. I think this one right here is for, that's for input valid salary. So I'm going to come down here, and these will be the new and improved, we'll call them data non-duplication functions. All right, when you think about it, what did we have here? We have 4 different kinds of employees. We have hourly employees, we have piece worker employees, we have commission worker employees, and we have salary worker employees. All of them have numeric values that are either decimal values or they're integer values. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to write a couple methods. All right, so let's put in here static bool attempt to get valid decimal input. All right. Now, it's giving me the error because we're not returning anything. We said it's a bool. So for now, let's return true. Okay, we have no errors now. It's gray because it's not being used. So I'm going to grab this one, and we'll make another one. And this one will be called attempt to get valid integer input. All right. Now, if we can write things like this that'll allow us to get valid integer input, well, let's look first the valid decimal. All right. I'm going to go way back up to the top. And let's look at everything in here that's decimal. All of the stuff for our hourly worker. Piece stuff for our piece worker. Everything for our commission worker. And everything for our salaried worker. For integer, all right, we've got this right now. And when I say this, what I mean is these are things, and actually they're pretty much the way that I think that they should be. All right. In other words, this stuff should be decimal. This stuff should be decimal. That should be decimal. That should be decimal. And that should be integer. All right. So again, remember, our goal here is to see if we can take a bunch of this stuff that's in here and cut down what we have. All right, we're going to have quite a few parameters in here. Let's have a string that we'll call prompt. Let's have another string that'll be called name. All right, and prompt will be, basically what we're looking for. Name will be the type, the actual value we're looking for. All right, we'll have a decimal that'll be for the minimum. Another decimal for the maximum. And we'll have an out that'll be of type decimal, and we'll just call that value. All right. Now, when you look here, we're getting an error because it says the out must be assigned before it leave the current method. So it's looking for something here. All right. And that's fine. I'm going to grab everything that we just put in here. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to paste it in. Now, what's going to change here is this is going to be int min and int max. Oops, not int, and int max. All right, we're still getting that same error. So don't worry about it. In fact, let's take this one and let's comment it out. All right, so now we don't get an error there. So again, we'll put a comment in here, and that comment will say, this function will attempt to be, how about this? Not will attempt, will be used to validate any field that is of type decimal. Whereas the other one will be of type integer. Okay, now again, we're getting that error. Don't worry about it right now. It's totally fine. All right. So let's just come up here and we're going to say while true. What does while true even mean? It means as long as something is happening. All right. And if it's not happening, it'll be false. Okay. So while true, what do we want to do in here? Well, let's do a write. And we will write in here the prompt. So what does that mean? That means that we'll write something like, again, what are we looking for? The prompt is going to be the thing we are looking for. So I'm going to say string. I'm going to use very generic names here. Input equals readline. So we're going to prompt for something and then read it in. Just like we have been doing, we're going to have string error message equals that, and we'll have bool, we'll just call it is valid, and that'll be equal to true. Now, what I'd like to be able to do in here is to, for lack of better words, to kind of use a lot of the stuff that we used before. All right. So when we look at what's in here, well, what did we do before? We did this. Validation both, is there input, validation both is decimal. All right, then we checked and said if it's not valid, put some errors in there. And then we did a parse. And then we did all this stuff again. All right. So for lack of better words, and again, I'm going to just grab everything that we've got in here. How's that? Might be easiest to explain it this way. All right. So I've got everything in between the while true, beginning and end. Okay. Okay, in fact, there's a little more than I actually needed here. So let's, yeah, that's fine. We'll just do it all. That's fine. I think I got it all in here. Okay, so again, if there's errors, don't worry, we're going to get them out right away. In fact, let's take this error message like we've been doing in the is valid. Let's put those at the top. Okay, so what do we have in here right now? While true. And again, hopefully you realize that this is gray because it is not currently being called. We got the string of error message that'll hold any error message, the flag that'll be true if there's no error messages, all right, and false if there were error messages. So true if there were error messages, so data not valid, and false if there were error messages. And actually, this is wrong. So this will be for data is valid and false if there were error messages. In other words, data is not valid. Okay, that should make sense. All right, so we're going to come in here. We'll have our prompt. Okay, nothing new there. So let me get rid of all this because this was asking for something specific in here. So again, we'll add this tuple, all right, to hold any error messages just like before. We'll use is there input, and it'll be the input, and it'll be name. This should make much more sense in just a minute because we're going to call it, and then you'll see exactly what happens here. Then we're going to do it is decimal, and again, for the is decimal, just like we just did, we'll have input and we'll have name. All right, so we've got that same kind of thing we did before. All right, if it's not valid, we'll say the errors that were found and we'll continue on. If there were no errors, now we can say parsed value equals decimal.parse, and what are we going to parse? We're going to parse the input. All right, now we have to do our range check. All right, so is within range, and again we will send the same thing we sent before, up here. So the same way, up here, we're going to send input and name. All right, and notice in here, we passed in a min and a max. So they're already, since this is decimal, they're already decimals. So we can just say here min, and we can say here max. All right, now it's giving us errors, and I'm not sure why, but we'll see why in just a second. Decimal min, decimal max. So let's see what this says. Cannot convert from decimal to int. This is decimal input. Is there input? Oh, I think it's from right up above. decimal.parse input. All right, so the problem is right now, the way that we've got this written is in our library. It is expecting min and max to both be int. So let's float that, cast that rather, to an int, and cast that to an int. All right? Now, do we have to do that? No. If we want to use the is within range, we do. The other way around that, just so you see this, is I'm going to keep that in here, but I'm going to comment it out. All right, we'll replace that with this. We'll just put the code inline here to say if parsed value is less than min, or parsed value is greater than max. Well, what do we know? We know there is an error. We know there is an error. Now, what doesn't it like? That should be an and, not an invalid expression term. What if I put the whole thing? All right, I don't know why that would matter to it, but it seems like it does. I think I can come in here and do this. Like that. So if this is the case, it's out of range. So we're doing a range check here. All right, so we can put in a right line and say name must be between min and max. The advantage of putting it inline like this, the disadvantage is we're no longer using our validation both. The advantage is we don't have to worry about casting. Now we're going to be checking apples with apples. In other words, this is checking decimal values, and so is this. So if that's the case, we want to write that down, and we want to continue, which is going to not return, but it's going to pop us back up to the top again. All right. Now, if we get down to here, we don't have to worry about this anymore. So we can get all this stuff down at the bottom. Get rid of all that. Okay, and I can get rid of all this. There. But we're not done yet. We'll say value equal parsed value and return true. Now that's the whole function. All right, now let's take a look at it. Let's break it down and see what we're doing here. All right, we're attempting to get valid decimal input. Ideally, we're going to be able to use this for any field that is requiring decimal input. What does that mean? Well, if we go back up to the top, that'll mean hours, rate, price per piece, commission percentage, commission sales, and salary. And if I counted that right, that's 6 fields. In just a minute, we're going to look at the same thing for an integer, which really in this particular example is only for pieces made. All right? Now, I think what we will be able to do now, I'm going to go back down to the very bottom where I've been. And it looks like I may be having a problem with attempt to get valid decimal input. I might be missing a curly brace here. There we go. Yeah, that was from here. So now it's going to give me an error because now I have too many. That's okay. Now for this one, we're doing virtually the same thing. All right. Let's make sure, now that I think about it, we're going to have a problem because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to throw that into value. Well, let's make sure that when we start, value even has a value. So there's a value for value. So value equals 0M. So we're going to initialize it, in other words. All right. Now I'm going to copy every bit of this. And I'm going to end up putting it into here. So if there were no errors to this point, no, we don't need any of this. Oh, wait a minute. What am I doing? I don't know how that got... That's everything. All right, I'm going to attempt now to copy every bit of this and put it in here. If it'll let me. So let me click here, hold down on the Shift key, click over here, copy, and paste. Now, are we going to have to make changes? Of course we are. So don't worry about those changes. We're going to make them right now. All right. So this is get valid integer input. So I can now uncomment these. All right, it's going to give me errors. Don't worry about it. First of all, I don't want value to be 0M. I just want it to be 0. Okay. All right. Okay, so I want to call isInt32 instead of isDecimal. And here it's going to be int parsed value equals int 30. We can do it int 32. I think just int will work. Dot parse. All right. And again, I might be off with a curly brace here. I think I'm missing the final curly brace. There. Okay. So I have gone in and I have rewritten. It looks like I've got errors, so we're going to fix those in a moment. And I can already tell what those are. Here we go. All right. And this has got to be moved over 1. Come on. There we go. Move this over 1. Okay. We might be off by a curly brace here. We're going to fix it in just a moment. So there's that one. Okay. There we go. All right, so now we have one routine that is going to allow us to put in decimal input and another routine that's going to allow us to put in integer input. Okay? So now hopefully we can come in and simplify some of the methods that we've been using before. All right, so let's start with valid hours worked. I think that's the first one. So I want to show you this because I want to show you what we're going to be saving here. So here's our input valid hours worked. So right now, starts on line 183, and then again, there's a boatload of comments in here, and it goes to 272. So for lack of better words, it's about 90 lines. All right, I'm going to take everything that's in here, everything, the entire thing, and I'm going to get rid of it. So now, that's all we have in here. Okay, in our input valid hours worked. But what I want to do is I want to come in here now, and I wish I would be been smart enough to remember what these were called, but it's okay. I think it's attempt to get valid decimal input. There we go. So I'm going to now call attempt to get valid, oh, hello, attempt to get valid decimal input. All right. And I'm going to start by coming in here. Remember, the first thing that we need to provide, and it's showing us, we need the prompt. So I'm going to put in here the prompt that's going to say, please input hours worked between min hours and max hours. All right, so that'll be the first thing that we're putting in there. In other words, it is the first argument that we're passing. Now we need name. And what's the name? Well, it's hours worked. All right, then we need a minimum and a maximum. So the minimum will be min hours and the maximum will be max hours. And we need now an out decimal value. And we will return value. Wow. So we've replaced basically, whoops, a semicolon on the end there. So we've replaced this, and now instead of it being 90 lines, it literally is now the equivalent of about 10 lines. All right, so we're going to go and copy this, and everywhere that we're putting in decimal values, we're going to get rid of and replace it, but I'll make sure I change the field name appropriately. So there's that one. So we're going to again attempt, move this over. So this is please input hourly rate. And that hourly rate will be between min H rate and max H rate. And this will become hourly rate. This again will be min H rate. And this will be max H rate. And boom. And of course, at the end, we need to return value. That's another one done. So now our gross pay, that shouldn't change, but now let's look at our piecework. This is pieces made. So can we do this one? The answer is yes, but instead of calling the one for decimal, we have to call the one for integer. All right, so this will be attempt to get valid integer input. This will be out int value. Let's move these over. And this will be please input pieces made between, what was it, min pieces, I believe, and max pieces. So this will become pieces made. And again, min pieces and max pieces. It's pieces made, I'm sorry. All right. All right. Int okay, and my integer 1 way down at the bottom. I don't think I changed everything I was supposed to change. So let's look. Int dot parse value equal parsed value. That should be an int. I apologize. Hopefully, now that error that was in here is gone. And you can see that it is. All right, now we've got our price per piece, so I'm going to go back to the one that we've been using here. We're going to be able to use that for virtually everything that's left. All right. So this is price per piece. And I'm probably running up on time. Yes. This one is going to be longer because I'm just going to finish the whole flipping thing here. Okay. And now we're down to the percentage. Okay, that's going to be wrong because there's two M's in there. And there's two M's in there. So that one's done. This is sales. Hopefully you can already see the number of lines that we're getting rid of as we're going through this. So this should not be hourly rate anymore. This should be commission percentage. And this should be commission sales. Okay. And this is salary. So this should be the last one, hopefully, that we have to do in here. Now, did I go nuts with all the comments I put in? The answer is yes, I did. But we had 900 lines of code, and now we've got 515. So we cut about 400 of those lines of code out of here, which I think is pretty doggone good. This is screwed up. We'll fix it right now. Here we go. And we're missing a curly. Okay, so this will be please input salary between min salary and max salary. This should now be commission sales. And that's commission percentage, so that looks good. Salary. Min salary and max salary. All right, I'm hoping we can run this now. So let's save it and let's run it and see what happens. Now I could have missed anything in here while we did this. So there could still be errors in here. Let's try it. 1. Okay. Looks good. How about out of range? Okay. We'll say 50. Rate. looks good, 1100, so that one works. Let's try piece worker. And let's say they made 25 pieces. Now, we should be able to change this one back again, the price per piece. So you saw that the number 1 worked. Let's go back and change that, which I think is good. So this price per piece, now we'll change the minimum is going to be 0.01 M. A penny is the minimum. And the maximum price per piece is $1. So it's 1.00. All right. I think I've made it cleaner in what we've just done. You may agree, you may disagree. All right, for our percentage, 0, and now this is going to be 0.3. And this is max sales, that's fine, and that's fine. Those should all be okay the way they are. So we've already checked, and for number 1, that all worked. So let's try number 2 again. 2. All right. We've already tried this. So let's come in here and let's put in a valid number of pieces. So we'll put in 25. Now I've got between 10 and 100. So I have to change that. That should be between 0 and $1. So let's find that. Pieces made between min pieces and max pieces. Pieces made should be between 0 and 100. Price per piece should be between a penny and $1. Please input, oh, that's hourly rate, which should have been changed. There should be price per piece. Between the minimum and the maximum. Hopefully that's correct. Now let's see. Again, we're on number 2 of 4. Why am I still getting an integer price per piece between 10 and 100? There it is. That's interesting. Wondering, I want to make sure I'm running the correct program. Let's make sure that's our startup project. Should still look the same. So 1, prompt. Ah, okie dokie. So we were not writing the right one. We'll fix that right now. Okay. And I think we'll come back and do that in the next lecture.